Hello YouTube, this is Dazzathecameraman. Today is Monday, August 20th, 2018. Well, it is, at least here in New Zealand. It's still Sunday in parts of the world elsewhere. You get that with time zones. I'm very pleased to have with me a couple of special guests. We've got Red's Rhetoric, and
Hello,
I've
guys.
also got my good friend marcusPmMarcus. Welcome along. Welcome, Mark. Okay, so as I've announced, we've got something that we've been waiting on for quite some time now. You know, people have been calling for a working model of the flat Earth model, and so finally we've got a breakthrough, and I'm pleased to be able to present that to you today. We're going to take a look at it in just a few minutes. Just going to have a bit of an introduction first. Because you know, we have the two models. We've got the globe Earth model and the flat Earth model, and of course there's a lot of debate between the two camps. And as a globe Earth or a globe Earther, if you like, of course I can say that the globe Earth model works 100%. We can predict the phases of the moon. We can predict solar eclipses and lunar eclipses. We can predict transits of Mercury and Venus across the face of the sun. We can predict the seasons. We can predict the sunrise and the sunset from all different locations all over the Earth. And so we've been waiting to see a working flat Earth model that can accurately show these things, and so we've actually made some great progress in producing this model. Now I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at what we've had so far, and there may be other models around, but as far as I'm aware, pretty much this image here, where we see the sun and the moon chasing around. Let me know in the chat on YouTube if you can see that, please. I don't have a separate preview at the moment. Hopefully you can see this animated view of the sun chasing the moon around. And we notice that it's fixed. So we've got the sun and the moon permanently 180 degrees separated in the sky. And of course that is not reality. Red, did you want to make any comments on that before I go ahead?
Yeah, they can see it. This model has already been debunked so many times on my Red's Rhetoric channel. One of the major problems with this, I'll just highlight this, is that in this model, the sun is never going to set below the horizon. And the fact that it does set behind the horizon is a really big problem for this model and anyone who believes in this depiction of Earth.
Absolutely. Mark, have you got anything to add to that?
This particular one, it doesn't, the sun seems to be above the equator constantly. And the moon and the sun are always 180 degrees apart. We know that's not true. We see the moon in the daytime just as often as we see it in the nighttime.
Absolutely. And now this is just a very simple animation, of course. It's hardly like a working model, but you know, as Red has pointed out too, that the sun would never set below the horizon. That's something we've also looked at. It's simple geometry that with a sun 3,000 miles above a flat Earth disk, which is 25,000 miles in diameter, the sun is always going to be at least several degrees above the horizon. It will never be at 0 degrees on the horizon or below the horizon. It is simple geometry.
Yep.
And anybody with paper and crayons and you know, can work that out just by drawing a few lines. It's very simple.
Yeah, the only thing they need to understand is that parallel lines do not intersect by definition. Otherwise, with the right amount of zoom, we would see train tracks crossing over in the distance. We never see that.
Absolutely. And the other thing, of course, is the angular size of the sun. The sun should be changing its angular size considerably every day as the sun crosses the sky. but of course we don't see that at all. Now, a lot of the flat earthers claim that we do, but of course they're not using solar filters to filter out all of the glare of the sun. As soon as you use a suitable solar filter, and you can actually see the disk of the sun, and no, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the sun is flat, but you can see what we call the disk of the sun. That is the sun with all of the glare removed, and we can see that the angular size does not change at all.
Exactly. And another thing that is the case is that on my channel, I did this observation where I took a picture of the sun, one picture every 30 minutes on a very clear day, or at least as clear of a day as I could find. So after I took one picture every 30 days, I put all the images online. And I asked people, go ahead and try to find any 2 images where the sun is a different size. To this day, none of them have been able to do it. And my response to that is, gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because the angular size of the sun does not change. But on a flat Earth, on this particular model, we would expect the sun to rise at one angular size, grow to 3 times bigger midday, and then shrink again to the size it was when it initially rose. We never see that. So this model is debunked by that alone.
Absolutely. Now, I'll just mention for people who have just joined us, yes, we are going to be presenting this working model very shortly. What we're looking at on screen at the moment is not the model that we're talking about. So just hang tight. We will be getting to it very shortly. Mark, did you have anything that you wanted to add about the angular size?
No, other than the video that you saw that in which I did the same thing, measured the angular diameter of the sun, and showed what if the sun's angular diameter is 0.53 degrees, how far it would have to be above you to maintain that size. But again, that works only if you're directly beneath the sun. As soon as you move any number of significant miles, it'll change, it'll shrink, and you may recall that video. Right,
and it was a very good video too. Okay, now one of the problems that I have been from a south or the Southern Hemisphere location here in New Zealand. So I'm right about where my finger's pointing right now in Tauranga, New Zealand. And the problem is that I don't see the sun's path around the sky as we're seeing in this simple animation here. On the equinox, of course, the sun rises due east and sets due west, as seen from every location on the Earth. So when the sun is rising, I should be looking over in this direction, not over in this direction. And when the sun is setting due west, I should be looking over in this direction, not over in this direction. So we have a problem. But to make matters worse, that's at the equinox. To make matters worse, during the summer months in December, the sun is actually rising in the southeast and setting in the southwest, which of course is impossible according to this model.
Yes, and also, Daz, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So please educate me because I'm ignorant. On this model, if you are looking due south, you would actually see the stars traversing across the horizon. You wouldn't actually see a fixed point in which the stars rotate, correct?
We have a point in the sky, which is where the star Sigma Octantis is very close to, and the stars rotate around that point looking due south. It's about 30, my latitude, 37 degrees altitude in the sky. And of course, we see the Southern Cross, which features on our New Zealand flag and on the Australian flag, rotating clockwise around that point in the southern sky.
Yeah, so because on the flat Earth model, we would need to see the stars traversing across the horizon. You say that that doesn't happen. So right there, by my observations being done in Florida, I can look due north and see stars rotating around a fixed point. You can look due south and see stars rotating around a fixed point. And this model does not allow for two pole stars, because it leads to contradictions when dealing with the southern celestial pole. The main problem that is plaguing this model is that the south celestial pole exists. Because it exists, this model is debunked by that, as well as the observations that can be done with the sun.
Absolutely. Okay, so as I pointed out, the sun rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest, as seen from New Zealand during the summer months. And here is a simple image using the popular flat Earth map that I added the sun's path to, as seen from my location here in New Zealand. And already we can see the problem is that the sun appears to be rotating around New Zealand instead of rotating around the North Pole on the flat Earth map. And this view here is as seen at the equinox in September and March, where the sun is rising due east and setting due west. But as I mentioned, in the summer months for the Southern Hemisphere in December, the sun is actually rising down here and setting down here, even though the path of the sun, according to both the flat Earth model and the globe Earth model, is always north of New Zealand, yet somehow it rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest. So now we're going to get to the bit that everybody's been waiting for, the big announcement of the working flat Earth model and 3D simulator. And here it is, folks. This is it. And at the moment, you're looking at a still image, but hang in there. It gets better. I'll just go full screen on that. So I would like to give a special thanks to Cara Deanne for producing this. Now, I was talking to Cara at the end of a hangout with Red's Rhetoric just a few days ago, and I showed her the simple image that I'd produced and asked her if she would be able to produce a working 3D model showing the path of the sun. And it didn't take her very long at all. And here it is, folks. And it is fully interactive. You can zoom in and zoom out, and you can move the model all around to look at different views. You can set your location, your latitude, your longitude. You can set the time of the day. You can set the season. You can see that we've also got the stars there. And the interesting thing about this is, although we could look up and see the star Polaris directly above the North Pole of this flat Earth map, you will not see the Southern Cross because it is actually below the disk of the flat Earth. And I'm in New Zealand, and I see the Southern Cross every clear night. Now, Red, have you ever seen the Southern Cross?
I have not.
Now, why do you think that might be, Red?
It might be because it's blocked by the curvature of the Earth, but I'm just a NASA shill, so what would I know?
Right. Mark, have you ever seen the Southern Cross?
No.
You haven't. Why do you think that might be, Mark?
I'm not far enough south.
Exactly. So I have never seen the star Polaris, yet I can see the sun and the moon crossing the sky from, you know, one side to the other, and there are times when I'm sure that the sun would be further away than Polaris would be from my view. But in fact, Polaris is actually 37 degrees below my northern horizon. Now, how do I know that it's 37 degrees below my northern horizon when I can't actually see it? Well, I can actually work that out by using other constellations such as Orion and actually projecting the distance down by using angular measurements. And, you know, when we see the constellations cross the sky, and, you know, some people say that refraction accounts for why the sun doesn't change its angular size and all this sort of thing. But the funny thing is that the constellations, the familiar constellations like Orion and Scorpio and others, they actually maintain their proportions without distorting as they cross the sky. So if there was some weird sort of thing going on with refraction, I would expect that the constellations would actually be changing their shapes and distorting as they cross the sky. But in fact, we don't see that at all. So here are the controls. You can see at the top there, we've got the day, and this is breakdown of 24 hours. If I hit the space bar on this, I can pause the animation. you can just click in the box and enter any figure. So I can put in 12, and that will take me to solar noon. Time of the year, so I can adjust this. And you'll notice that the path of the sun changes depending on whether it's winter, summer, or the equinox. Now, this red circle here represents the path of the sun at the given location at the equinox. So the sun will be rising due east and setting due west. So for me, when I change the time of the year here, and I put it in the middle, that would be my winter time. So if I change that to 0.5, right, that's snapped into the winter solstice for me as seen from New Zealand. And if I make that 0, that will snap back to summertime for me when the sun is at the highest point in the sky. You can see it also gives the sun's altitude and the azimuth there. Okay, but wait, there's more. Kara has done a fantastic job on this. Let me just rotate this around again. In fact, let me use one of the features. I'm just going to push the R key on my keyboard, R for reset, and that's just snapped it right back there. And it's actually set up for my latitude and longitude here in Tauranga, New Zealand. You can see the compass there. Just interrupt me, guys, if you want to make any comment or anything. So we've got 3 views on this. If I hit the 1, 2, or 3 key on my keyboard, it'll change views. So that's number 1. This is number 2. And again, I can zoom in and out. I'm using the scroll on the mouse at the moment. And now Kara is able to make refinements to this because it's online. So each time I go into it, there might be new features or refinements. And number 3 will give us a different view again. So we're looking outward from the compass, and we can look around from the center of the flat Earth and look around. This is one where you can actually look up in the sky and see Polaris. So you've got all sorts of different views that you can use there. And I'm still getting familiar with the controls, so bear with me. And once again, even in this view, you will not see the Southern Cross or the southern constellations from this view because they're actually below the disk of the Earth. I'm just going to reset that back again. And okay. So I can change the, let me zoom that forward a bit. Now that's my view from New Zealand, centered on New Zealand. But if I change my longitude, then we can actually move this around as well. And it's always centered on the compass there. So, maybe if I'm in Sydney, Australia, or Melbourne, and I can put in the exact longitude for Melbourne and latitude. You see we have the same problem here, is that before when we were looking at the view from New Zealand, then as I showed in my little illustration that I did before, is that the sun appears to be rotating around New Zealand instead of rotating around the North Pole on the flat Earth map. And we have the same problem if we center our viewing location from any other location in the Southern Hemisphere, such as Sydney or Melbourne or over in Perth, is that the sun seems to be orbiting those locations in the Southern Hemisphere. And it doesn't matter where we go around the disk of the flat Earth. If we're in South Africa or in Argentina or Chile, these locations all seem to have their own sun orbiting around their location instead of orbiting around the center of the flat Earth.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how much you have to bend reality in order to make this model work.
Yeah. Now, it's important to point out that this model has been created by using what we see in the real world every day. That is the angle of the sun at any given location, any given longitude and latitude on Earth, and applying that to a flat Earth model. So this is a real-world model applied to the flat Earth. And
Yes.
what we quickly see is that when we apply the real world, when we apply what we see in the real world to a flat Earth model, it cannot work.
Yeah, I would also like to point something out. For that, I'm going to share my screen. So let me know if you guys can see it. So here it goes. All right, you guys should be able to see my screen right about now.
Okay, I'll just present you to everyone.
Sounds good. Let me know when I'm presented to everyone.
Right, you're presented.
Looks like you're actually the one presented to everyone.
Okay, maybe I need to stop sharing and present to everyone.
Perfect.
How's that?
Okay, so as you can see with this model, basically I'm going to go over a dialogue that would be going on for people who are on this flat Earth. Okay, Dazza?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so right now the dialogue is, wow, it's a beautiful day in Hawaii. Okay, so beautiful day in Hawaii. Wow, it's actually really hot in Hawaii right now. I don't know why we even bothered to come here as a vacation. Okay, the tires are actually starting to melt to the road. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I think we need to get out of here as soon as possible. Okay, things are spontaneously bursting into flames right now. I don't know what's going on. I feel my skin melting. Stuff is definitely going wrong here. We need to get out of here. At this point, there is no dialogue because everyone is dead.
And the ocean is boiling.
The ocean is boiling. You know, it's death and destruction everywhere. Basically, what you have here is a mass extinction event. I'm sorry, the island of Hawaii. It was nice knowing you, but you are now a giant puddle of what used to be.
Well, I think now we know why the volcano was erupting.
There you go. It was actually caused by the sun, and the only reason that people have not heard about this is because the Freemason, NASA, Illuminati, lizard people were blocking that information.
Sure.
Absolutely. It sounds like a good explanation to me. It could be the only one.
It's the only one.
Yep. Now, yes, it is a real model, and this model is free for everybody to use. Kara has kindly provided it for everybody to use, and I will drop a link into the description area underneath this video and in the first pinned comment, and in fact we can drop the link into the chat. Would you like to drop that, Red?
Yep.
And there is a password which the flat earthers are going to love.
Can I say it, please?
You can say it, Red.
Okay, the password is NASA. We actually had a board meeting about what to make the password, and after referencing the laws of physics and thermodynamics, we were able to come up with a password of NASA. So there you go.
Perfect.
Yes. So also, you can stop presenting me now.
Thank you. I think you stopped presenting for some reason anyway. Yeah, I'll share that back again on mine.
Yeah, what I'll also do is I'll leave a link to this model on my G+ community page.
Thank you. Now, I'm just looking for your link in the chat there, because I think I need to give you a spanner if you haven't got one already.
Yeah, it's not showing up because I don't have a wrench, so I'll say hi or something.
All right.
There we go.
There we go. Better make sure I add it to the right person and stop it scrolling. That could be interesting. Okay, add moderator.
Or disastrous, whichever one comes first, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right, there we go. You can post the link now. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, the link has been posted.
Great. So there we go, folks. Help yourself. If you scroll down below the model, underneath the model, you will see that there are some notes of the controls. As I mentioned, Kara is refining this all the time, adding new features and just tweaking it. And you've got 3 different views of the model. If you push the keys 1, 2, or 3 on your keyboard, it will give you 3 different views. You can push the space bar to stop the animation. And you've got the controls up here, which you can either type in a number up the top or move the slider. And there are probably plenty of other features as well. You can use left and right click on your mouse for different controls. So at the moment, I'm using left click to adjust the view up and down. But if I use the right click on my mouse, then I can actually manipulate or rotate the model for different views. So also, if I push the R key on my keyboard, this will reset the view. Now, at the moment, that should be taking me back to my location, but it's not. So let me change views. I might need to restart the application. No doubt there may be a few little bugs in it that need to be tweaked out, but for the most part, I've found that it works very well. Okay.
Now I understand why Rocket Lab is very worried about launching rockets, because they're worried about colliding with the sun.
Yeah. So I'm just going to stop sharing that, and I'll reset the application. So just remember that, folks, if you want to use the model, the link is in the chat there, and I will post it in the comments underneath this video later on. And the password, if you want to use it, is NASA. That's all in capitals.
Yes.
Now, I want to show something from view from my location here in New Zealand about the sunrise and sunset. Okay, so let's come back up again. I'll just go full screen on that before I start presenting it. So thanks again to Kara. I really appreciate your work on this. It's been awesome, and you did it so very quickly as well. I was amazed.
Kara is an absolute pro.
She is. She's fantastic. Okay, so we're back to my view here in New Zealand. The compass is set on my location as seen from Tauranga, New Zealand, which is latitude minus 37.7, longitude 176. And this is set to the equinox. So the sun is rising due east, crossing over the sky in the northern half of my sky because I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, and setting due west as it does as seen from every location on the Earth on the equinox. And I should mention too, of course, that the equinox is again next month in September 22nd. And it is another opportunity for flat earthers and globe earthers alike all over the world to get out there and actually do some real world observations and check the direction of their sunrise and sunset on the equinox. And you can use Google Maps or Google Earth to verify the direction of your sunrise by finding a road or some other landmark that runs due east-west, so that you can confirm that the sun is actually rising due east and setting due west. Now, of course, if the Earth is a flat disk, it should be impossible to see the sun rising due east and setting due west from every location on the Earth on the same day. Simple geometry says that that is impossible.
It would also be helpful to record the time that the sun rises and the time that the sun sets.
Yes.
What would be the number of hours between those two?
Yeah, and the best thing to do, of course, is to video. As we had the Equinox challenge a couple of years ago, we had 9 entries. Red, I recall that you had at least an entry in that.
Yep, I did.
Yep, and so we had 9 video entries, and of course, all of them were from globe earthers. We did not have a single entry from a flat earther, which is sad because it was open to everybody. So I'm hoping that this time around, the flat earthers will actually get out there on the equinox and actually document the direction of their sunrise and or sunset on the equinox.
The only participation that we got from flat earthers was a bunch of complaints in my comment section that I did not have a video which didn't have cuts in it, because I was skipping through the entire sunrise because the entire video is over an hour long. So I did that to save time. And then what I did was that in the description, I have an unlisted video which showed the entire sunrise uncut, showing that this was indeed a real observation. And then all of a sudden, all the negative comments disappeared. I wonder why that is. So guys, instead of making negative comments saying that I'm faking literally everything, why don't you go out there and do it yourself? You know, do what Dazza is suggesting here. Go out, do the observations yourself, and that way you can't say it's fake because you did it yourself. You gathered the data points yourself. You can't blame NASA. You can't blame me or Dazza for it. You did it yourself. Hey, the best way to convince you that the model is accurate is to go out there and confirm it for yourself. Absolutely.
And again, same thing applies to checking the angular size of the sun. Now, all three of us here, Red, Mark, and I, have all carried out real-world experiments to test the angular size of the sun from sunrise to solar noon to sunset. And we find that the angular size of the sun does not change as it crosses the sky.
Exactly. Do that yourself and try to avoid using the zetetic method of having an unprotected camera that is prone to glare. Use a solar filter.
Yes, and I recommend, well, I think that you really have to use full optical zoom. And you want to make sure that if you've got digital zoom, turn the digital zoom off. Only use optical zoom. Zoom into full optical zoom so that you know that you've got a consistent zoom amount that you're using. So, you know, there can be no question about how far you were zoomed in or zoomed out.
Yep, exactly. That's what I did on my Nikon P900, which, by the way, is the flat earther camera of choice. And I just want to point out that there is a lot of contradictory thinking when it comes to Nikon. Whenever flat earthers think the Nikon supports their case, they'll go ahead and believe footage or pictures that come from it. But the very moment it debunks them, all of a sudden they have a problem with what the camera shows. I just find that very interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was very, very interesting. You know, I found it so interesting, in fact, that I now got 2 P900s just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, and I can report it wasn't.
And of course, we've got the P1000 coming up for sale next month as well. That's going to be very good.
Yep, it's already ordered. I'm just waiting now. I'm being very patient.
Right. Now, I want to address a few of the comments in the chat there. Some people were asking about where the sun goes in this model. Well, I think it's pretty clear that the sun appears to disappear below the disk of the sun out the other side. And I've got this set up again. This is set to my location here in Tauranga, New Zealand, in the Southern Hemisphere, east of Australia. And this is the angle that the sun rises at this particular time of the year. This is set to the equinox, so this is March and September. And if the sun was rotating around the North Pole above the flat Earth disk, then it should be following these lines that are shown on the map here. Okay. In fact, we can see the edge of Australia there and Indonesia and so on. So it should be following around about here, okay? But we can clearly see that the angle that the sun is rising is actually, it's obviously coming up from below on this model instead of coming from around this way. So as long as the sun is rising in this direction instead of coming around from this direction, we already have a problem. And this is what we see from any location in the Southern Hemisphere, whether it be New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Chile, Argentina, okay? It just doesn't work. And it really amuses me that globe earthers had to create a working model of the flat Earth to show that the flat Earth model doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, in order to make the flat Earth model work with reality, at least in some aspect, I am going to go ahead and make an assertion here that you have to sacrifice your common sense. You have to sacrifice your common sense. You have to be willing to believe that Hawaii is getting massacred by the sun every single day. You have to believe in not necessarily a Pac-Man sun, but more like a Portal sun, for those that play the game Portal. You have to believe that everyone has their own personal sun, which means that every issue that you're seeing with this model is just a glitch in the matrix. So, I mean, just how much of your common sense do you have to sacrifice? How many assumptions you have to make and just blindly accept do you have to like go through to make sure that this model works in some aspect? I'm sorry, but I don't have that much faith.
There are just too many problems with it. Just things that won't work. They can't work in the real world.
Yeah, so it's like how much, but that really is a frustrating question right there. It's like, how much of your common sense do you have to sacrifice? How many assumptions do you have to make and just blindly accept in order for this to make sense? How far do you have to, just get rid of any notion of a rational thought before you finally figure out that, wow, this model has problems? It's amazing how many issues there are once you introduce the Earth as having a flat surface. Guys, I this is why I stress, do the observations yourself. Try to construct a model. You see, we globe earthers have been giving out many challenges. Wolfie's been doing it. Daz has been doing it. I've been doing it. But they all center around the same challenge. We haven't actually been giving you guys different challenges. We've been giving you different aspects of the same challenge. That challenge is to construct a working flat Earth model that comports with real-world observations. To this day, not one flat earther has been able to do that. Not one. What does that say?
And there's a challenge out there for, again, the Equinox is next month. So flat earthers, please get out there with your cameras and document the direction of your sunrise and or your sunset on the equinox, which is the 22nd of September this year. You can use Google Maps or Google Earth to find a road or a street that is running due east, due west, so that you can look along that road and confirm that the sun is rising due east, setting due west. Make a video and show your evidence. We want proof of the date and time. And if you go to my channel and check out the Equinox challenge in my playlists, you will find 9 different videos, including from Red and Wolfie and several others, showing their documentation of their sunrise and or sunset on the equinox, and it will give you an idea of how to go about it.
Yeah, I'll be entering into that challenge again. I did before. I will do it again, only this time I will be traveling to the other coast. I'll be traveling to the east coast of Florida. along the road, along a road that runs perfectly due east. I've already selected the spot. And that way you can actually see the water from this road, and the sun is going to rise right down the middle of it. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah. Now, in this view that I've got set at the moment, it's probably about the closest that we have to that that other simulated view that we started off with. The interesting thing is that when I change the time of the year, this circle actually ends up going below the Earth. Now, why do you think that would be, guys? What happens in the Northern Hemisphere winter with the sun?
It just disappears.
It disappears. You've got 24-hour darkness in the Arctic Circle. Same thing at the South Pole in the Antarctic, in the Southern Hemisphere winter. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, this simulator, this working 3D flat Earth model is actually what we see in the real world applied to a flat Earth model.
Yeah,
it's no good making a flat Earth model and just inventing your own little universe within that model without actually applying what we see in the real world. But what we have here is actually what we see in the real world applied to a flat Earth model, and that's why it works. And this is why the sun actually disappears below the disk of the flat Earth during the Northern Hemisphere winter.
Yep. And also, I did see this comment in the live chat a few minutes ago, but there were some people saying, but we flat earthers don't believe in the AE map, or you're just one flat earther that doesn't believe in the AE map. But I'm sure if you ask Kara really, really nicely, she would be more than happy to construct a model for you that comports with our observations with any flat earth map you present. So if you give us that starting point, I'm sure that we can go ahead and make you that model. And then you can see what contradictions lie within that model for yourself.
Absolutely.
So this isn't necessarily a straw man when we're outright offering, okay, if this is not the model that comports with reality, give us one that does. And to that I say, good luck. You're going to need it.
You see, Kara's even got the shadows of the what do you call it? The relief of the map.
Oh yeah,
she's done a great job on this.
Yep, Kara is absolutely amazing.
You see the shadows as the sun goes over there. It's pretty amazing. And let me reset the view. Let's go back to the other view and back to. Let's bring it right down by the edge of the flat Earth, and you can see even around the ice wall here. Let me bring that back. You see the shadows there on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Around. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And for those that are like, yeah, but when the sun goes under the Earth, it's 24-hour darkness. Listen, sun.exe has stopped working, okay? It's doing the best it can.
So, Red, would you like to drop that link in the chat again? And I will post it underneath this video later on, and we'll probably wind this up fairly shortly. Mark,
good.
I just wanted to mention your angular size video again. I know that you produced that for my Facebook discussion page, Flat Earth Serious Research and Discussion Only. So that's an unlisted video, but you demonstrated how to actually make a device for measuring the angular size of the sun.
Yeah, it's really very simple. I just bought a couple of meter sticks rather than yardsticks, and a small angle bracket and a piece of balsa wood, and that's all you need. Well, aside from a suitable filter. But at any rate, yeah, it's only, what, $2-3 for the whole thing. You can make your own device for measuring the angular diameter of the sun. And I believe you're probably going to ask if that link can be included. Sure. Yeah, that's not a problem.
It would be great. Thank you, Mark.
Commenting has been turned off simply because it was made specifically for that group. But nonetheless, it does demonstrate very, very clearly how you can easily make your own device to measure the angular diameter of the sun.
Right. And as Red mentioned earlier as well, if you're going to be using a camera to film the sun, you must use a suitable solar filter. Otherwise, all you're going to see is a lot of glare and not much sun.
Right. I was using some welding goggles that I had purchased online for about $16 or $17, something like that. Even that was a little bright for me, given my visual conditions. So I even had sunglasses on beneath those welding goggles, and that worked out really well for me.
Right. Now, again, a comment in the chat there about the map. The idiot says the AE map is not good. It gets directions and sizes wildly wrong in all kinds of ways. Comment I would make is that we could actually take a blank canvas and call that our flat Earth disk, where we didn't have any countries marked on it. And basically you could take just arbitrary locations. But what we see in the real world is reflected in what we see in this model. As I say, from my location here in New Zealand, the sun rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest during the summer months, which would be impossible according to any flat Earth model, any flat Earth map. It doesn't matter which map version you use. What we see is not possible on a flat Earth model. It just simply cannot work.
No, there's actually nothing that can work. This has been primarily centered around the sun, this particular hangout, but we can get into the moon and the stars and further destroy the flat Earth model very, very easily.
Yep, absolutely nothing works on this model. And if you do want to go forward with the assertion that it does work in some aspect, demonstrate it. I'm sure that it will be very easy to show in that case that it doesn't work in many other aspects.
Correct.
Now, I think we should arrange to do some simultaneous filming of the sun and the moon at some stage, Red. We've both got P900s, and
Yep.
I think we need to take some photos at exactly the same moment and compare the angular size of the moon and the sun from our two different locations.
That would be absolutely fantastic. I'm definitely on board.
Yep. And looking forward to that P1000 coming out. You've already got one on order.
Yes.
I'm hoping to have access to one very soon, with my fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've already seen some preview images. There's a guy, he's got a YouTube channel and a Facebook page. He set up a P1000, Nikon P1000 owners page, and he's posted some of his videos. He's lucky enough to have one for testing, and he posted an image, some photos and video of the moon the other day at about first quarter, and fantastic images. Just having that larger lens on it and the larger optical zoom, it's up to 3,000 millimeter equivalent. The P900 is 2,000 millimeter equivalent at 35 millimeter. So, you know, just amazing. And you've got 4K video. I believe that it has live video output. Nikon have told me that it does. I'm hoping that they haven't misunderstood my question, because I was very sorely disappointed to find that the P900 did not have live video output. You can certainly connect it to a TV monitor and output your photos and video recordings, but not live.
Yeah, I was very disappointed about that too. And a lot of comments that I got when recorded rocket launches from Florida was, wow, I could still see it on the screen. Why did you completely miss it, or why did it slowly drift out of frame? It's because I'm looking at this thing on a screen that's absolutely tiny. Sure, it's absolutely awesome and easy to see it when you're looking at it through a 30-inch monitor, but the very moment you shrink that down to the size of the screen that's on the P900, you can't see it. So when I do get the P1000, I will be bringing an external monitor and a battery pack with me, because boy, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That is going to be awesome. I will definitely be investing to make sure that I can actually see it this time, because boy, am I going to be using the add that feature.
Yeah. And raw images too.
Yes.
I remember for a good friend of mine who's right into astrophotography, he takes fantastic images. He was quite interested in the P900 because of the zoom, but the deal breaker was that it didn't have RAW. So P1000 might be for him.
Might be. I say go for it. So the new weapon for destroying flat Earth, the Nikon P1000.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, well, guys, I'll wind this up very shortly. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, Mark?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything we wanted to cover on this one.
Thank you. And Red?
Nope, I think that pretty much sums it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and just another quick recap of this model. It has 3 different views. I'll just push the reset, which is the R button on my keyboard. And that's view 1. If I push the keys 1, 2, or 3 on my keyboard, it will change the view. This is view number 1. This is view number 2. You can zoom in and out. I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse at the moment to zoom in and out. If I push the number 3 key, this will give us a view from the center looking out. And again, you can use your left and right keys on the mouse to manipulate your view. These controls are fully adjustable. You can either just use the sliders, or you can type in numbers. You can use the space bar to pause it if you want to take a snapshot of a view. And of course, you've got the data showing the sun's altitude and azimuth direction there. So check the link below the video and in the first pinned comment. And the password, if you need to put in a password, is NASA. All capitals. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me, Mark. Thank you for joining Red. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to everyone in the chat for watching the video.
All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.